some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Monday. It's Monday, right? February 9th, 2026. And Keir Starmer is refusing to step down. He says, no, we will not step down. We will continue showing people how terribly we can govern this place without causing a full-blown revolt. And I guess we'll see. There are people who are going to be calling for Keir Starmer's resignation, according to internet rumors. But the internet rumors said Keir Starmer would be gone by Friday, and that's not the case. And so will he be gone by the end of the day today? I don't know. There are people who, again, the leader of Scotland is supposed to be calling for his resignation. Then the leader of Wales said she was going to do it, but then found out that the leader of Scotland was going to do it. So she said, well, I'm just going to wait now. I'm just going to wait. We'll see what happens after the leader of Scotland calls for the resignation of the prime minister. So why not join forces or whatever? Anyway, it's a whole thing. And like the United Kingdom series of tabs today could also be the free speech series of tabs, although we've got some free speech stuff in our grab bag of governance as well, because the UK stuff is very UK, but I think it's looking into a crystal ball to our future. Hopefully not. And the Canadian stuff is talking about C9. So we'll talk about that. Spring election on the horizon. No solution will come from that because our elections are rigged. And if you can't actually have an election about the things that you need to have an election about, unfortunately. And we get led down the garden path. Again, our elections are rigged. They create a wrestling style situation inside of a washing machine, and they turn the washing machine on fast or spin cycle or whatever it is. And you get so inundated with bullshit that you can't, and you're so dizzy, you can't find the way out. And so that's how they, quote, win elections. And that's one of the different vectors of election theft. Dominion's another one. Mail-in ballots are another one. Non-fungible tokens or fungible tokens that they have to reconcile at the end of the night due to, vote anywhere in your riding legislation and things like that. All of these things stack up to paint a picture of completely fraudulent elections, totally 100% fraudulent elections. And look at BC, just look at BC. And they don't want to reconcile anything. Just look at BC. So, gosh, spring election. Who cares? Who cares? To quote Mark Carney. Silver and why it keeps resetting. It's a really good little article, and we might get to it before the end of the free show today. But it's a really, really good article, and it talks about how silver's been reset a bunch of times from the 1980s to the modern era, and yep. I was reading it and I was like, yep, not shocked at all. So we'll talk about that. Facial recognition in the United Kingdom, live facial recognition, or LFR, if you want to confuse people. You know, in the ULEZ zone, they've got the LFR, eh? What? The UK section, I already talked about that. MPs are getting raises on April 1st. The Governor General's getting raises on April 1st. Everybody's getting raises on April 1st. They've got to keep up with inflation, you see. And when's the last time you got a raise? Because, I get a raise all the time. I get new people are joining my show and stuff. So I get a raise every day, kind of, sort of. But it's not the same thing, right? Are people getting raises out there? Because it doesn't seem like people are getting raises out there unless it's negotiated within your union contract and you have like a stepping stone or something like that. The private sector is just being routed right now, and I don't think people have extra money for raises. So it's one of those things where the politicians who already make $200,000 a year getting a $10,000 raise or $30,000 raise or $50,000 raise doesn't make any sense, right? If it was me and I had a magic wand and I was prime minister or premier, I would say the maximum MP salary can be the average salary for your riding. For the area that you live, the average salary, that's what you get. And you don't get to, and maybe it can be province-wide. What's the average salary province-wide? $70,000 now, right? $65,000, $70,000, something like that. And so if you are an MP, this shouldn't be your golden parachute. This shouldn't be your retirement plan. This shouldn't be, and you should be proud to serve. Some places get like a $200 stipend to pay for your hotel while you're in town doing the governing, right? Like, and that's it. I don't think that politicians should be getting rich, and our politicians are getting rich. There's a problem there, in my opinion. Anyway, lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Let's talk about wasted money, because they're wasting money. Wasteful spending, high taxes, that's the plan. That's what they want to do. And they're like, hey, man, we like to waste your money, and we like making you give us your money. So taxes are going up, and we're getting a raise. And here's all sorts of wasteful spending. Wealth Moose says, Canadian Industry Minister Mel Joly says, Chinese EV makers can build EVs in Canada and sell them globally. I'm honestly speechless. Why would they manufacture at much higher costs? That defeats the entire point. Compare this to Honda Civics made in Ontario. Makes no sense. Most of those are sold to the United States. Chinese EVs aren't allowed to be sold to the United States. If Civics were banned from the United States, that Ontario plant would shut down fast. The Canadian market alone is too small to sustain this. Basic economics seems to be missing here. Basic economics are missing from our entire governance. All of it. Every level. These people are like, oh, we could just borrow money forever and nobody's ever going to call in that bet or call in that debt or anything like that. No, everything's going to be fine. We're just going to continue kicking the can down the road. Nobody's ever going to pay off the debt and everything's going to be hunky-dory and the United States is going to bail us out. La, 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 la. And it seems like the politicians maybe really believe that. And that's scary as all get out. Mark Carney says this is 14 hours ago. Mark Carney repeats himself often, just like the us in between whatever he's trying to say. Mark Carney says more than 12 million Canadians, which is a million more than the last time, Auntie Ali says, will receive hundreds more dollars this year to help cover everyday costs because of the new Canadian groceries and essentials benefit. A million more than when Justin Trudeau did the exact same thing. So tell us again how your policies are making things better for Canadians. So they did the same thing and it's worse. More people are poor enough to qualify for this essentials thing. And when you take money, tax dollars, there's a certain amount of money, and the people who qualify for the essentials GST rebate or whatever it's a repackaged refund of taxes paid. So a lot of the people who are eligible are already not making enough to pay taxes. So they're already not paying taxes. So functionally, what the government is doing is targeting people who make $70,000 a year, and they take the taxes from people who make $70,000 a year up to $200,000 a year, I'm sure, maybe $500,000 a year even. They take that money and they redistribute it in a communist style to people who don't work. Why? Because they've made groceries so expensive that these people who don't work can't afford it anymore. And so us suckers who do work have to pay for their food and our food. Why? You got me. I don't know either. Doesn't make any damn sense. So while they also shut down our entire economic engine, they're doing that at the same time. We're paying for their living like suckers, while the government, who's forcing us to pay for their leeching off of us, shuts down our entire economic engine. Does that make sense? No. Could this person get a majority? No. But in this world, in our rigged system, that's what they're saying. Oh, Carney is set up for a majority. You don't want a spring election. He's going to get a majority. Bullshit. But they're going to push it. And like when they predict stuff like this, they have a way of making it happen. So it's pretty crazy when their policies don't work. It's provable because whenever they do the same policy the next year, more people are worse off. And yet these people are still in control. Why? Got me. Because they all work for somebody, and it's not you and it's not me. It's whoever owns this country. And again, not you and not me, unfortunately. Eli is responding to Trending Politics. Trending Politics says federal MPs are in line for another pay raise on April 1st, with estimates showing increases ranging from $8,000 to almost $9,000 to $17,600. So there you go. MPs already make over $200,000 a year, says Eli, and have incredible perks, including business class travel and pensions. Enough is enough. Canada is on track to have the highest paid politicians in the world. What if being a politician didn't pay? And what if you weren't allowed to trade stocks? And what if we only wanted people who were patriotic and who wanted the best for the country and who were going to make deals for the country, and they were going to forego their own personal deals while they were running the country? What about that? Like, why can't we have that? Right? And maybe that excludes top talent, but maybe it doesn't too. Right? Like I've seen Elon Musk spend a lot of money on trying to save what his vision of free speech is. And it leaves a lot to be desired if I'm honest, right? I stopped paying for Twitter because I'm not going to pay to be censored, but fundamentally he's trying and he's spending something on it, right? So like you have to demand, right? And maybe compensate, but I don't think you have to be the retirement plan and the whole family, like $200,000 a year. That's more than twice what the average salary is in Ontario anyway. So does this make sense? Why are we giving them a raise? How is that justified? I don't think it's justified. The Governor General also is getting a raise. The Toronto Sun says we could abolish that. I wouldn't be, why do we have this position? It is a ornamental, that's the wrong word. It is ornamental. I'm going to keep using it. It's an ornamental position, and it means nothing. And she doesn't do anything. And she's a lapdog for the Liberals, and the office itself has been a lapdog for the Liberals forever. And so, like, didn't she donate to the Trudeau Foundation? The whole thing. You can't have a foundation either. You shouldn't have a foundation. How about no? How about if you've got a charity, you're excluded from dealing in selling access through your charity to the Prime Minister? Thanks very much. We had enough of that, right? No Clinton Foundation, no Trudeau Foundation, no none of that crap, no Brookfield, no none of that. None of it. Why? Why are we doing this? It seems insane. These people hate us, and they're stealing our money and sending it to Ukraine. So let's give them a raise? Let's give them a majority? Oh, Mark Carney was elected to get a deal with Donald Trump, and he got a deal with China instead. Let's give him a majority? I'll get there in a minute. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Wall Street Mav calls Canada out. He says 77% of exports from Canada are to the United States. Only 15% of the USA's exports are to Canada. Canada's housing is 2 times more expensive, and that's being generous, than the United States. And their incomes are 30% lower. Canada's radical leftist government thinks they can go elbows up on trade. Meanwhile, their economy is stagnant. Yes. And it's stagnant on purpose. They're trying to turn off our economic engine so they can bail us out with their own tax dollars and then an IMF loan. And then they'll say, oh, Canada, we're real sorry that you're so poor and you're so unable to, make any money of this rich country. I guess we'll just have the United Nations watch over it because you're so dumb with all of the stupid things you've done with your economy and stuff. And then they're not wrong. And we're just sitting around allowing these conflicted people to make bad deals on our behalf. Why? GM Forbes says Mark Carney's travel expenses, not all of them in the first year, pay attention to the second pick in the in-flight catering. As record number of Canadians turn to food banks, he's spending tens of thousands of dollars on food for 2 or 3 day trips. $50,000. $50,000 was nothing. $227,000. Carney's weekend trip to see the Pope last May, which included his wife and daughter, cost more than $227,000 just for accommodations and in-flight catering. So there you go. And we picked up that tab. Isn't that generous of us? Why? Why did we do that? Doesn't make any sense. And there's a whole list of other expenses for travel and things like that. $33,000 for Mexico City for the 18th to 19th of September. $33,000. 33. It's so weird. Super weird, right? To South Korea, $24,000. So Mexico's $33,000. South Korea, $24,000. Okay. Kuala Lumpur, not available. You don't get to know how much that was. London, England, $52,000. So and that's just the in-flight meals. So Carney, we are being built for the rich elite banksters to fly around the world and hang out with their buddies, right? And who are their buddies? Don't ask, because, well, sure, you can read their emails, but nothing's going to happen. So Robert Fife says Carney and Ford discussed the idea of an early federal election to secure a majority, sources say. What utter nonsense. Nonsense. And Ford's a liberal, and he governs like a liberal and spends like a liberal and allows gender ideology and affirmative action like a liberal. And so I don't trust Ford, and I don't trust his entire cabinet. I've been trying to meet with education ministers since 2018. And if you've watched the show, you know. And it's useless. It's absolutely useless. These people don't work for us. They don't care about us. They, in fact, have an active, animated dislike of us, verging on hate. And they might hate us. I think they probably do hate us. But they'll say up and down, oh, no, we're doing our best for Ontario. There's no evidence of that, in my opinion, none. And again, my position on Carney and his potential for a majority, despite what the polls say, because the polls are as rigged as the elections, there's no way that a rational country would give somebody a majority who promised one thing, a deal with the United States, and delivered a deal with China instead. That is enough to tank his political aspirations, period. You don't go into an election with that. And they're going to turn the pressure sprayer onto 11 and shoot you in the face with it. And they'll just tell you and yell at you that Alberta won't separate and Canada's strong and unity and diversity. And that's it. And then all of a sudden the election will be over and you'll be relieved that the election's over. But it'll be exactly the same configuration that we're in now with a little bit of difference and nothing changed. And it's useless. It's absolutely useless. They need our consent. They had our consent during COVID, and now nobody trusts them. So in order to push it forward, they're going to push censorship. And that's That's the plan. Toronto City News, the censorship is the next tab. So darn, it would have been better if the censorship was this one. Anyway, an election petition on the Parliament website calls on the House of Commons to require all federal party leaders to obtain and maintain top security clearance, or top secret security clearance. Matt says, I think I speak for most Canadians, and I'd say I'd rather sign a petition that calls for Mark Carney's to disclose his offshore accounts and how he is still profiting from the success of Brookfield. Yeah, like they're trying, the media is trying to lead you down one pathway. Like, oh, why doesn't Pierre Poilievre have the security clearance, blah, 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 blah. And it's a pedestrian. It is pretending that the last 10 years didn't happen, specifically the last 6 years from 2020 on. Didn't happen. Politics as usual. Don't even ask a question. $120 silver? I don't know what you're talking about. They're pretending it's politics is normal, and it's damn well not. And they can try and convince people, but it's not. It's not how it was. Frances Widdowson is one more. Frances Widdowson is talking about her speech, and this is what they do. Well, hold on. We'll do the C9 one first, and then we'll do the Frances Widdowson. Marty up north says, Bill C9 will be discussed in the House of Commons tomorrow, which is today. The Liberals are limiting debate to 2 hours. They're going to keep trying to push this thing through. This 2-hour debate is part of it. They're going to say, oh, we debated it in the House of Commons. It was a robust debate, and it's passed. There you go. Bingo, bingo, bongo. And the NDP are on board. They love this idea. So the really scary part of this bill is its forfeiture clause. The Liberals are trying to censor us by making hate, loosely defined concept, a crime and giving themselves huge powers. Courts could order forfeiture of, quote, anything by means of or in relation to which the offense was committed to the Crown for disposal, potentially destruction or sale. For online creators, this could mean phones, computers, laptops, or tablets, hard drives used to create, edit, upload, or post the so-called offending content symbols. Offending content could even include biblical scriptures. As an example, Leviticus 2:2013 reads, blah, 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 blah. Some critics argue this is hatred towards homosexuals. The Liberals are attacking free speech. Yes, they are. And they are attacking free speech on the ground as well with foot soldiers who are emboldened by police who do nothing because the police have been told to do nothing. And unless it's arrest Frances Widdowson. So here's what these people who are trying to defend free speech have to put up with when they are when they're protesting or whatever, trying to talk about the lies we're being told, trying to pull back the curtain on the space between what's being said and the truth. And instead they have brainwashed idiots who come up and try and silence them with drums. Idiots. Absolute fools. Widdowson says, this is what happens at U Lethbridge, Danielle Smith, when we tried to discuss residential school genocide. We need a public inquiry about how to restore our universities to be academic spaces once more. Yep. Because it's certainly not an academic space now, that's for sure. 18 minutes. National Post says, new Liberal Inclusion Council heralds more division. The federal strategy on culture involves discriminating against Canadians and delegitimizing their history. Want social cohesion? Cut it out. They don't want social cohesion. They want a split, wedged electorate, because a split and wedged electorate is easy to manage. Much easier to manage because you give them fear, you give them what they expect, and they'll do what you think. And they don't want a united group of people who are fighting for their own best interests. They want people fighting against each other, saying, yeah, trans ideology is bad, or, blah is bad, or this policy is bad, or that policy is bad, instead of coming together and fighting the government. They don't want that. So they want people fighting each other. Hence the split on the right, hence the paid guys versus the non-paid guys and gals, right? And the split in the middle from the Liberals to the other Liberals, the Conservatives, and they split and they wedge. And they allow you to self-select. So you get to choose which side of the wedge you're on, but you're on a wedge, and they wedge you and wedge you and wedge you until you realize, holy shit, I'm being played. And then you join a party that's kind of outside the wedge, and you can see it. Join a party. The politics are bunk. It is not the solution. Just like there was no solution, no political solution to COVID. We didn't vote anybody out. We just said, how about no? How about shove it up your ass? How about we're not going to do your stupid ideas? No masks, no this, no that. No. How about no? We just said no. There's no political solution, and there's no political solution to what's happening in Canada right now, especially if it goes through the electorate, the elections, Canada, all of that stuff. It's rigged. It's rigged. It's rigged. And nobody's addressing that. And so I don't understand, like, you can't join the only political, quasi-political thing you could possibly do is join one of the active groups or something to that effect, like Jeremy McKenzie's pushing, and that'll just get you on CSIS's radar. Right? Like, people will be like, oh, these people are, doing more than complaining about it now. And so that'll get you on people's radar. But again, I think fundamentally the lack of political solution just means we sit around and say no, but their agenda pushes forward and they brainwash kids into thinking this is okay. And it takes the kids until they're 35 and childless to realize, holy shit, we were lied to. And that sucks because they don't believe me when I try and tell them, except a few kids do believe me, and that's good. Good job, kids. Of course, by kids, I mean 18 to 25-year-olds. Because when you're 40, you realize, like, holy cow, experience counts for a lot. It really, really does. Anyway, the National Post article talking about the Inclusion Council is frightening, and we'll go through just a little bit of it. On Wednesday, this is an opinion piece, so this is not hard news in the sense of a hard news article on the National Post, but opinion pieces are worth it sometimes. On Wednesday, Canadian Identity and Culture Minister Mark Miller announced that he'll be assembling a committee to come up with a common narrative to hold our rapidly diversifying nation together. This new advisory council on rights, equality, and inclusion is just the latest initiative that makes some kind of vague promise to unite Canadians and, in Miller's words, quote, ensure every person feels included. Nope, not for a while now. And they don't want me to feel included. They want me to feel included in the part of the wedge. But other than that, they're not interested in my history. They're not interested in Canadian history. And I'm a first generation immigrant. Like, my parents were immigrants. So, like, they've lost me, totally lost me. I know they hate me. And I'm kind of quasi in their target group. But nope, absolutely not. If it feels like the 30th time the Liberals have done something like this, well, you're probably not far off. Diversity is always our strength, but diversity also perpetually needs to be solved, right? And policed with censorship. Like so many other totally nonpartisan advisory groups created by the federal government, this one is poised to be a thinly veiled progressive think tank with a roster of, quote, experts, community leaders, and, quote, prominent Canadians from academia. Yeah, right. At no point, I believe that they will be from academia. I do not believe they will be academic at all. At no point does this announcement for the committee mention Canada's history, its art and architecture, its contributions to film, its military accomplishments, its beautiful and vast geography, its pride and self-sufficiency. We're not self-sufficient anymore, I don't think. Or its pioneer spirit. Indeed, aside from mentioning Indigenous people, it's nearly completely blind to the heritage that has underpinned the country for a century and a half. For 10 years, the Liberals have cast Canada as a post-national state whose dominant culture is multiculturalism, which we voted into law in 1987 under Mulroney, I believe, a collection of other people's cultures. At the same time, they've alienated the population from its own history and redrawn the Canadian timeline as a sequence of human rights violations, stolen land, residential schools, head tax, lack of women's suffrage, the Khalistani stuff, and so on. There is no attempt to understand why decision makers in history made the choices they did at the time. No calls for nuance, just visceral contempt for the past. And so this is how they control you. It's brainwashing, repetition and brainwashing. Wild stuff. This guy is talking about how all fish, lobster, crab, all that stuff is caught in China. And this is kind of trade related. It's a minute and a half, worthwhile, but we're already at 23 minutes. I've been showing, oof, that hurts. New York, Mamdini's New York has a situation where they're not clearing the snow. And I was speculating that that was some kind of weird attack against sense and people, right? Because they can't get around. It's very difficult to get around New York because the snow's very high. They're even getting into the subway. They're stepping in other people's footprints who've kind of blazed a path for them. But that's not how city services are supposed to work. You're supposed to clear that stuff. And so in Germany, same kind of thing. Mario says German hospitals are overwhelmed with people suffering broken bones from icy roads. Thousands have been injured this winter after German authorities banned the use of road salt because of green ideology. This is getting completely out of control. So people are just like walking across